On the surface, Bong Joon-ho's Snowpiercer is quite literally a linear story. After a mass extinction event leaving the world in uninhabitable cold, the last fraction of humanity survives on an ark-like train that will travel around the world, it is supposed, eternally. The film chronicles the attempt of the impoverished members of the train's tail section as they try to overtake the godlike captain at the very front, Wilford. As the tail section warriors, led militarily by Chris Evans as Curtis and spiritually by John Hurt as Gilliam, make their way through successive compartments of the train, we're treated to a sort of live-action flowchart of the class system in a hierarchical society. It's quite obvious that Snowpiercer is an allegory of class culture and how tensions innate within it lead to resentment and eventually revolution. Some have criticized the film for being so transparent in this respect, but the genius in director Bong Joon-ho's art house sci-fi action film is not in the message as such, but how, through the tools and techniques of filmmaking, he conveys it. For example, it's understandable symbolically why the tail section of the train might not have any windows. For passengers of that section, the train is literally the world.
In the whole wide train?
In the whole wide train.
Just as the lower classes in society are forced to be concerned almost exclusively with survival, living at the whims of ideologies invented by those of higher cultural standing.
So it is.
But as Curtis and his band reach the front of the train toward the end of the film, we notice that those sections are also devoid of windows. In sauna cars and rave cars and drug cars, the affluent members of the upper class are just as encouraged as their counterparts to consider the train as the entirety of what there is. Even in the sacred engine room, where Ed Harris as Wilford maintains the life-giving machine he created, there's an almost claustrophobic feeling, a feeling of only being able to see in the direction of the linear train's linear path.
The train is the world.
In the whole wide train?
In the whole wide train.
As Slavoj Zizek famously said,
"It's much easier to imagine the end of all life on Earth than a much more modest radical change in capitalism."
This philosophy is central to Snowpiercer. The first time the tail section looks laterally out of the window, their response is,
Oh, Dad.
Stay focused. We didn't come here for this.
as Gilliam attests, these people can't see anything outside of the train but death. Their focus is either forward or backward, and all throughout the film we see Curtis making choices that force him to look in either of these two directions, filmed by Joon-ho in beautiful profile.
We go forward.
Small side note, the YouTube channel Every Frame a Painting examined Joon-ho's artistic use of the profile shot from another of his films, Mother, which is great and I'll leave a link for in the description. The front and tail sections are similar in another way. In color scheme, both are muted. In the back, it's a mix of greens and blues. In the engine room, a kind of off-white predominates, a spoiled white, symbolizing the false redemption of Curtis's revolution. And indeed, as the film bears out, his revolution doesn't represent salvation for the sufferers of the train. As he himself realizes when Wilford names him as the successor, Curtis was only perpetuating the system he sought to bring down. Like so many revolutions in the real world, Curtis and Gilliam's revolution was, in fact, an essential part of the exploitative system. Joon-ho understands this. Visually, he's trying to direct our attention to another part of the train and another pair of protagonists. It's the middle section where windows outfit every car. It's the middle section where muted colors explode into the full spectrum, and it's two passengers from the middle section, Nam-gook and his daughter Yona, who eventually make the choice to derail the train and escape into a world all others see as frozen and dead. As Curtis fights his way forward, Nam-gook is repeatedly concerned with what's outside the train, making sure his daughter sees that too. In this scene, he explains to her what dirt is, that he used to walk with it under his feet. See, Yona is a train baby, which means that she's never known any world but the train. Her father educates and protects her from the violence that defines the hierarchical struggle he wants her to escape. By far the most symbolically rich scene of the film, and the one I think Joon-ho is loudly signaling as the most important by his use of a full rainbow of color, is the car in which the middle of the train children are quote-unquote educated. Of course, like the front and the back, the middle of the train is meant to represent the middle class of something close to, but not exactly akin to, contemporary capitalist society. Educated enough to think for themselves, yet comfortable enough to be highly susceptible to propaganda, the middle class is at once the most important and the most dangerous cross-section of society. And the school is the place where the middle class is indoctrinated into a system that will exploit them and those less fortunate, where ideology is most powerful. Indeed, this is how the members of the middle class become the tail section's faceless oppressors, all at the bidding of those who languish in hedonism and power. Earlier in the film, Curtis figures out that the blunt tools of those oppressors, their guns, are devoid of bullets. Yet, when he gets to the school, Joon-ho shows us where the invisible but real violence in this society lies. And in a great foreshadowing of the futility of Curtis's quest, the guns are hidden underneath eggs, death in false birth. Here again, Namgung instructs Yona to look outside. As the children are indoctrinated into their propaganda, he gives her a true education, which eventually comes to fruition in a true lateral escape from their linear, repetitive story. We, like Yona, are all of us train babies, born into a system that seems as immutable as the earth. In Snowpiercer, Bong Joon-ho gives us a poetic glimpse into how this system works. And as he shows in the film, sometimes the best historian is the artist.